of the June meeting minutes that were sent out in advance. Everybody should have gotten a copy of those. We did not meet in July. Are there any edits or any comments for the June minutes before approving? Okay, hearing none, I'll motion that we approve the minutes from June. Is there a second?
So move.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Very good. June meetings are approved. So the first item is board member check-in. I just asked Terry about anything specific, but this is just kind of a go around to see how everybody's doing. So I will go around on my screen, starting with Travis.
Hey, I'm okay, all things considered, So we're getting ready to start the fall academic year. It's going to be very different for me, especially in dance, but we're creative people and we do creative things. So
very good. Shauna.
Things are going well. Just learning how to work remotely, and everybody about to go to school remotely. So we'll see how our internet holds up. So going well though.
Very good. Al.
I am fantastic. Mark knows why. A week ago Monday, the OU golf course opened up. Played 5 days last week and 4 so far this week. And I have to admit, a young man by the name of Travis Post, who is the grounds supervisor, I believe, I'm not sure that's his correct title, has done an unbelievable job of keeping that course in good shape. In fact, it's probably in as good a shape as it's been this time of year since it was reopened back in the early 2001. So this meeting doesn't go too long. I might sneak in another 9 tonight. Who knows?
You are looking refreshed, and I know Travis appreciates that comment.
Yeah, no, he has. It's nice to see a young person take pride in what they do, and the benefits are very evident for those of you who either play over there, or even walk by on the bike path. You can see it really looks nice.
Good stuff. Brandon.
I'm doing all right. COVID's canceled most events. So Brew Week was online, and that was all right. DJing is pretty much non-existent right now. So, but doing okay.
Cool. Daniel.
Doing all right. School's up how it is. So my daughters are 6.5. So I'll be with them. And actually I've been with them since March, since I was laid off. So on the bright note, I've had a lot of good family time, and you can't get it back. So I love that. I'll mention, since I've had some time, we go on hikes, and Camp Rotan is pretty close to where I live. And so since March, I think I probably put in about 20 hours or so, removing automall mostly. But the great thing is I put a sign back in for a white oak and removed the autumn olive. And now there are several pawpaw trees that have emerged. So this kind of a personal project that I'm doing, but it is part of the city. So, and would fall under this. So, that's just kind of a byproduct. I like to remove invasives. So that's something I've been up to that pertains to what we're doing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Jerry?
I'm good. Had our challenges. My objective is to keep things moving, keep my team and the morale up. Personal note, my garden is flourishing, so I spend a lot of time there. So yeah, I'm good. Daniel, I'd love to meet you out at Camp Rotan sometime. So maybe we can connect after this meeting, and I'll reach out and meet you out there.
Okay, that sounds great.
Mayor Patterson, I see you joined us. We're just kind of going around checking in with people. How are you doing?
Living the dream. I'm well. Crazy, interesting, challenging times for sure. We've got a large influx of people that have already occurred and will continue to occur this weekend. So just trying to make sure that the city is as safe as physically possible. We've been doing really well with COVID-19 positive cases in the city. We're down to 10 active cases from 178 or something like that back in mid-July. So that's trending in the right direction, but forever vigilant. And I heard Daniel give a little bit of a synopsis on killing invasives. That's kind of been my mission in Camp Rotan, and spent the last part of my day before coming home to my wonderful, amazing wife and children removing graffiti uptown where people are tagging stuff left and right because of idle hands. But other than that, I'm great.
Sounds good. All righty, let's shift to the old business. Terry, with COVID-19 closure, reopening.
Yeah, so just to update you there, we've reopened the fitness center and track. We've opened, we were initially open to members, now we're open to non-members, selling day passes and punch cards. We've reopened the tennis courts. And most recently, last week, opened the indoor courts for basketball, reservation only, and pickleball, reservation only. We have had people on the basketball courts, no contact, 1 to 2 people per court. And so we're hearing good things about that. Let's see, we have not opened our outdoor courts. That was advised to keep those closed and our shelters closed by the health department. Last conversation with the health department, discouraging any sort of group congregation. So that's pretty much where we're at there.
Okay.
Terry, I had a parent contact me about the basketball courts outside, and was wondering if those could not be opened the same way the indoor courts are open, limited to 1 to 2 people. So is that a possibility, or is it more a matter, as Jack Pepper was saying, more a matter of personnel to supervise that it stays that way, as opposed to suddenly that 1 or 2 people ends up with a 5-on-5 full court game?
So, one, my first thought is how do we enforce that? And that would be a level of staffing that we don't currently have. Going back to Jack's recommendation, when I had the conversation with him, there are courts that are open in Parkersburg, he said, and they are packed, and it's very hard to regulate. So when I asked him that specific question, because we are painting the courts, relining, and making those improvements, but he highly suggested do not open the courts because it's just it's a hot spot, so to speak, for group congregation.
Okay, great, thanks. That's what I kind of thought. I will pass that on.
Very good. Our next agenda item is the Friends of APR. Shauna?
Brandon and I had talked about this a little while ago, and we kind of thought that maybe now's still not the best time since everything's still so up in the air. And so we're going to table it for a little while. We still want to do it. It's still something we're really excited about, but maybe give it another couple months, see how this COVID thing goes, see how things settle down. So that's where we're at. You have anything to add, Brandon?
No, I think that nails it. I mean, yeah, it's hard to create something new, in this time, I think. So.
Okay.
The next one is mine, just an update. I'm going to send back out the document that we kind of started at the beginning of the year around board responsibilities. I know we had set some goals at the beginning of this year, and in the chaos of the last 5 or 6 months, we haven't really made too much progress, but I'm going to send that document back out so we can review, and hopefully we're able to nail something down maybe by just the end of this year, so we can get that finalized and the board will have it moving forward as something that can continue on after. So that's on there just as a heads up that I'm going to be sending your way. Certainly before the next meeting, if you can review it, and we can work on that throughout the course of the rest of this year and hopefully have it finalized by the end of the calendar year. All right, new business, Friends of Sells Park, Alan.
Okay, about 3 months ago at one of our FINA Far East Side Neighborhood Association board meetings, the topic of creating a friends group of Sells Park came up. For those of you who don't live over here on the Far East Side, Sells Park is at the end of Avon, the north end of Avon. And once you get to the park, it just opens up all the way out to Stroud's Running-Down Lake. It's a huge park, not Sells itself, but the whole complex. But the Sells Park area, at the top of the hill there's a nice little pond that could be used. It's kind of no fault of anyone, just through a lack of use through the years, really isn't something that can be used now. But at one time, talking to people my age and older who have lived in this area in the 50s and the 60s and 70s reference the days of actually skating on that pond, fishing on that pond, doing all kinds of things up in that pond. So it's not just the pond, but the area itself. The FINA Executive Board tends to skew a little older, people my age and older. In fact, I'm probably the second youngest one on the board. And consequently, these people have time and have energy and are ready to do something. So at the last meeting, Rick Abel brought up that there are different types of park, which I think Terry's going to address tonight. And those different types of parks can qualify for different sources of grant funding. And what we need to find out is exactly what category of park Sells falls into. To see if it's something that's viable. I think as Shauna mentioned earlier, in these tough times, raising money may be tough, but grants are still being given out. Returning of our tax dollars. So the group is going to meet again in 2 weeks. Two things on our agenda: one, meeting with Paul Logue about the comprehensive plan, but secondly, to talk about the feasibility and possibilities of forming a friends group. Single issue oriented, just Sells Park. And I would guess primarily made up of people over here on the Far East Side on these 9 streets. So that's kind of it. I guess what we're looking at is a clarification what type of park that is. And then, what next steps are. Fortunately with this, one of the spouses of one of our board members is a very competent and accomplished attorney. So we're going to have a lot of possibly volunteer labor, not only to do things that need to be done, but also in terms of legal filings and that sort of thing. People who know what they're doing without having to pay, big legal fees and things of that nature. So that's kind of an update. And I see Beth's right hand up there.
Yeah, Alan, I just wanted to say, I think that starting a Friends of Sells Park group is an excellent idea. And I wonder if you'd be open to having members who don't live in the Far East neighborhood, because a lot of my friends and I love that park and we go hiking there a lot, but we don't live in your neighborhood.
Well, the last I heard, if you wanted to shop at Kroger's, they'll take money from people who live in the Plains and in Millfield. So, yeah, certainly would welcome any and all, because it's not just a park for these 9 streets. For the folks who live on Avon, and we used to live on Avon, there's a lot of traffic up that street from all over the town and outside the city. So, yeah, absolutely, Beth. The more the merrier, and the wider net we can cast, the easier it might be to raise necessary funds.
And any other comments on that?
I guess the biggest thing is to find out, and maybe I think this is on the agenda from Terry, what park category Sells would fall in.
That is the next item on the agenda. Good segue.
Perfect.
Terry, you're muted.
Thank you. I'm going to send these definitions out to the board of the different park categories. Typically, these are identified in the master plan. As we move forward, I'd like to see our these parks, our parks identified by category. We don't have anything on record to date, but this board can establish that as we move forward through the master plan. But there are pocket parks, parklets. They are typically urban areas, maybe a lot or 2 lot size. Your neighborhood parks, which I think as far as cells proper, and what the neighborhood association would be responsible for, as far as what you'd like to do, that would be considered a neighborhood park. Typically less than 2 acres, although we get into different jurisdictions and how those are defined, which may qualify that as a community park. But again, I'm going to send you those definitions. I'm still looking into it. I didn't get as much done on this as I would have liked to. Community parks, an example of that would be the Athens Community Center campus, where we've got playgrounds, swimming pools, skate parks. That would qualify more as a community park. Regional parks, that's typically with local, county, and state jurisdiction. But I'll get those out and drill down on this a little more, have the board look at the definitions, and then Alan, get with you to specifically clarify on what cells would be recognized at.
Okay. Terry, you're up next too with the task force and project play.
All right. Shauna kind of prompted me to think through this a little bit with her email to the board about some of the challenges currently with youth and families that need places to connect. And then, of course, all the other challenges, whether they be programming challenges with the kids not going back to school. The big question is how does Arts, Parks, and Recreation identify and fill those gaps, and under the guise of APR, put things in place to meet those needs. So with that, gave Shauna's email a lot of thought, talked to staff, and what I've done is pulled together a task force, and this group is eager. Asked Shauna to serve on that from the advisory board, one of my staff members to serve on that, and make quick work of identifying what those needs are and how, with the resources that we have, whether it's staff, space, funding, and I can say, staff and funding are limited, so we've got to get really creative. How do we meet those needs? How do I identify and meet those needs? Got 4 other volunteers that are going to serve on that task force. And really what the charge is in the next 2 to 3 weeks, help us identify that and come up with thoughts and ideas. Our programming models have to shift. So we can't offer programs like we have in the past. And again, we can't take a loss on programs with the current budget. But how do we serve the needs and how do we serve the community? There's been, we know that we have space that we could use for families, quarantines or pods. So really to have that group work through what that looks like and identify drop-in services that we may be able to offer as well. they've tentatively this task force will start meeting next week, and tentatively, they're using the acronym PLAY, program learning for Athens youth. They'll massage that a little bit or decide if they want to go with that, but that was just something that was thrown out. So that's where we're at with that. And one of the volunteers is Boone Troyer. He has worked here in the past, familiar with the APR side, as well as active in the community with programming and outdoor rec and those types of things. That's that. So we hope to make pretty quick work of that. They'll come back with recommendations. I'll sit in on that first meeting, but really give them the green light to come back and then bring that back to the advisory board and implement things as quickly as we can, or open space. Part of that is looking at where we have internet service and what that might look like here at the community center, and being able to put things in place to mitigate risk. Any questions about that? But thank you, Shauna, for stepping up to be a part of this group. And yeah, I think it's the right thing.
Sounds good. Our next item last item in new business is our board retreat. Believe it or not, we're coming up to the fall, and we had our first retreat last fall, I believe in November. So I want to put that back on our radar, as that's going to be coming up pretty quickly, and get some thoughts on what that looks like and ideas of kind of how we structured it last year. If I recall correctly, we had an update from the mayor kind of on the vision and the direction where we're headed, an opportunity to interact with the staff, and then have good discussion kind of around our goals and the things that we should be doing for the following year. So just want to put that on the radar and open it up to any initial thoughts or comments on either timing and planning of it, or even just the structure and content that we might include this year.
I mean, are we thinking November again, or before, or after?
I had always thought either October, November is a good time range, especially kind of finishing up one year and leading into the next, in terms of having a good sense of where one's finishing and enough information to be able to plan and start the discussion for the following year. But it's up to us.
I think November might be better. Primary reason, I think we're going to have a much clearer picture of what the future holds. I'm a data person and track just about everything that's going on right now. Just give you an idea, the height of the COVID, we were averaging that week 20.57 cases a day. And once that cleared out, it started to drop to 9.86. to 4.43 to 2.86 to 1.57 to this last week 0.71 cases a day. I hate to say it, but I fully expect if we were sitting here a week from today, we're going to start back up. And if Ohio University is going to do what I think they're going to do, is they're not going to bring back phase 2. And they're going to leave the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So I think the later we can push this back into November, the clearer picture we're going to have of what life's going to be like. Because one thing we haven't talked about yet, and I'm sure this is on the agenda somewhere, is budget. And some of these figures are frightening. So that's a long answer to your short question, Mark. But I would push for I would advocate for the middle of November if we could.
Are we going to revisit the mission and vision statement I know that was something we started, but we didn't finish.
Muted again, Terry.
I'll get this right. Yes, Brandon. My thought was November. If we consistently do that, I know last year was the first time we did it. So I mean, just to be consistent, I think that time frame worked for us. And to Alan's point, we'll have a better idea of where we stand as far as the COVID climate.
So do we make a motion for that, or what's?
I think at this point we can just kind of agree, and we'll look for maybe some dates and options in November that we can put out and try to solidify something sooner rather than later so we can get it on our calendars.
Okay.
I think generally, in envisioning those retreats, I had looked at kind of having a review of the current year's progress, an update on the mayor's vision priorities or the city's priorities, and then just discussions around following your goals. Just as the base foundation is kind of the annual piece, I think the budget can be thrown in there. But I don't know if other folks have additional pieces that they feel we need to tackle in that retreat this year in particular.
I mean, go ahead, Steve. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think I'm in agreement with Alan. Timing wise, I would say, I think it should be before Thanksgiving, as opposed to after Thanksgiving. I don't know if we do it the 20th or whatever, because I think a big part of that conversation has to be what we have put before council in terms of the 2021 budget. That way everyone knows what 2021 is going to look like. And I'm not going to lie to anybody in this meeting. It's going to look stark. It's going to look extremely Spartan going into 2021. But I want this board to know what that looks like. So I think before November, or before OU goes on recess and then stays on recess for the remainder of the year, I think that it'd be wise to have the retreat sometime in that time frame.
Brandon, do you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to share. I think it'd be good if we revisit the council's goals. We set out to do as well. I know we talked about the department, but we were also changing what we did here just to see if we accomplish that and where we're at. So.
Yeah. Okay. I'll work with Terry. Maybe we can find some dates and then also maybe just start drafting up an agenda for that retreat, and we can revisit it at our next meeting and start preparing and planning for that in November. Sounds good. Sherry, we're into other items in your department staff report. And I know you're going to talk about kind of personnel and that type of thing. I did notice it came in a little bit earlier. There's a question in the chat from Sherry Oliver asking, can Friends of Arts West also be reactivated so the community can support Arts West financially and directly until the program specialist position is restored? So I thought I'd throw that out there. I don't know if that's something that you are going to weave into your department update or if you want to answer that separately, but I put that out there before you kind of dig into the department staff report.
All right, sure. And to that point, that was at the top of my list as far as personnel. I made the advisory board aware, I believe it was August 8th, that we laid off 2 recreation program specialists, temporary layoff due to work reduction in those program areas. So to Sherry's question, I'd like to look at Friends of Arts West and see how that was set up. But again, until the position is restored, There's a temporary layoff through January 4th. Tough times, tough decisions, unprecedented conditions. You know, I know that we've opened this facility, but weren't able to open Arts West. We never closed the doors on it. COVID closed the doors on it. And so yeah, I'd like to look at the structure of Friends of Arts West and have a more informed response, I guess, once I look at that. But I'm open to it.
Okay, you want to head into your staff report?
Sure. So that was, like I said, that was a number one item. As far as personnel, we still have vacant positions, the assistant director position, which is the facility operations position, that's still vacant. And then full-time landscaper and one part-time position. Kevin Skurlock, our maintenance supervisor, has done an amazing job keeping things moving. And I can say that he sees a light at the end of the tunnel because we're not mowing as frequently. But that group will move right into, our fall maintenance. And that's when they typically pick up projects, facility improvements. We've got storybook trail installation that's going in at Sells Park. Alan, we just confirmed that. That's a project that we're working with the library, in partnership with the library. So that storybook trail will go in. Library's responsible for adding the stories and changing the stories. Our responsibility is installing the kiosk. We looked at a few other sites. There can be, a number of storybook trails. So that will be going in Sells Park and ideally completed by September 15th. So maintenance is working on that. Playground installation at West State Street, that'll be a fall install, as well as painting shelters, restroom doors, and relining courts.
2 questions, Terry. How many kiosks will there be at Sells, and are there any drawings or renditions of those that we could take a look at?
Yes, there's 17. I saw the first one put together in staff meeting today, and I had hoped to have pictures, but I don't because they needed to shift the way the front of the kiosk was put together. We realized that it wasn't put together. They came with no instructions. So I'll send that out as soon as I get a photo of that. They're an aluminum frame, probably I want to say 15 by 20 inches, and they have an insert. Again, that's where the library will insert the stories and change those out accordingly. There's a drain on it for water, so they're climate sealed, so they won't get wet. But yeah, I'll send a picture of those out.
The second question dealt with the installation of West State Street. I assume that's going to be playground equipment?
Yes, we have that equipment. That's the swing set.
Okay. Is playground equipment something that, with the COVID regulations, that people can currently access?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, swings, yes. So, as far as programs, we've got the Start Smart Parent-Child program starting, soccer and football. Those numbers look good. Those 3 programs are outdoor programs. We are developing the area behind the community center for those Start Smart programs with the distancing requirements. parent-child will work together. So we feel like we've got things in place as far as distancing and safety with that program. Again, the numbers we just checked the numbers today. And I think our Thursday program is full. It starts the week of September 15th. I've met with somebody from the skateboard community, and he's going to be offering skateboard lessons. The trade-off there is that one Saturday each month he will provide free instruction to kids that couldn't necessarily afford lessons. We're still working through the details of that. He's pulling in volunteers to work with him on those Saturdays that he does instructions in the morning, the free instruction, to clean up the graffiti and clean up the park, and just have a park advocacy platform for skateboarders and the importance of not tagging things, really, and removing graffiti. So I'll work through the MOU, and we hope to start that in mid-September as well. Other programs, it's my intent to keep the virtual programs at Arts West going. We have 2 programs, fall spoken and heard events with Poet Laureate Carrie Gunter Seymour. I've emailed her, and Scott Thompson's aware that we're committed to providing the platform for that. Contacted Wendy McVickers to keep Silver Linings in place and keep that going. She's going to get back to us and let us know. She's going to continue to do that. I've met with Tessa Ivanowski, former employee at Arts West, that was responsible for starting the musical lending library. And we plan to reestablish that, lending instruments, string instruments, nothing with a mouthpiece. Keep that going. And we're discussing getting the prison program back in Arts West, but they haven't quite figured out what that model looks like and how we might do that. So we're not comfortable with that yet, but that is a possibility if we can go with the minimum numbers and do it safely. Let's see. Other programming ideas, we really want to provide something for families to get out. This area that we want to develop behind, we'll be developing behind the community center for the Start Smart programs, has a potential for wiffle ball. It could be families dropping in and playing wiffle ball. We would provide that equipment. It can be easily sanitized. They can pick it up here at the rec center. Kickball is another possibility. So we're looking at those types of programs that families and pods or quarantines can do. Hi, Beth.
Hi, one question about that. I have some friends, this has been a few years ago, but they were passionately involved in playing adult kickball in Washington, D.C. And they had this whole league and it was super competitive. And I just wondered if you guys might consider having some sort of adult kickball league or game or something as well.
So we want to try this. We have talked about kickball league, even at West State Street. And I think we put it out at one time and didn't have the interest to have a league per se. But yeah, I'm open to that. If we can do it safely, again, we'll have to, have the sanitization and distancing requirements in place, but I don't see why not. I think those are safe sports right now, even though the governor opened to contact sports. So yeah, I think that's definitely something we can consider.
All right. That was our last agenda item. Does anybody else have anything for the group?
Yeah, I want to go back very quickly to Mayor Patterson's comment. He used the word stark, and I don't mean to end this in doom and gloom by any means, but I got some figures last week that I just like to share with the group. Just a few figures, because sometimes I think in the day-to-day living that we do, some of us are touched by this more than others, and some not touched at all, and therefore we might sometimes think that things are normal and percolating along as they have the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years. The way the bed tax works is it's reported on a quarterly basis. And in 2019, for the quarter April, May, and June, the bed tax brought in $122,000. That's 3%. But what that represents is $4.1 million in spending that people spent in this county to stay in hotels and motels. 4.1 million. In that same period of April through June of this year, the bed tax dropped from $122,000 to $39,000. That $39,000 represents $1.3 million in spending. In other words, $2.8 million less was spent in Athens County in hotels and motels in that 3-month period of April, May, and June. As we all know, July, August, and September, the next quarter, is equally as big, and we will see as equally as big a drop-off. My purpose in sharing that is twofold. Number one, so that we know what we're facing here in Athens, but also as we get ready for this November retreat, that we begin to think about priorities and how we continue to offer a quality program with much, much less revenue. It's going to take some creative thinking, but I think the folks on this board and with the mayor's leadership and Terry's support and leadership, we can pull this off. We're not going to shut down, but it's going to look a lot different. But I want to share those figures. I was quite shocked when I saw a $2.8 million reduction in 3 short months.
You're on mute, Mayor.
Let me put an exclamation mark on that, Alan. I got the numbers from one hotelier that owns 2 hotels in Athens, and they typically will have somewhere between 70 and 80 completely full nights in an average calendar year. This is not an average calendar year. That particular hotel, which is our 2 newest hotels, which have the newer amenities, has had no night so far this year where they have been sold out. So to put, that's kind of an additional bit of information to add to your point, Alan. The city, as Alan indicated, receives about $230,000 a year for our share of the transient guest tax. That's half of that 3%. The other 1.5%, or the other half of that 3%, goes to the Athens County Convention and Visitors Bureau. Just for income tax revenue alone for the month of March, or for the month of May, we were down $330,000. So that was the entire year and then some of the TGT that was not coming in. The city lives by income tax, quite honestly. That's our major revenue source of the 15 million plus that comes into the general fund, which is income tax. The other thing to just so you know, and that's all I want you to do is just to know and think this through. Proprietary fund lines, parking garage funds the maintenance and the recent renovation to the parking garage. So that's money that can only be spent there. That is off by 50% so far and likely to be that for the remainder of the year. The other thing is our largest water consumer, our largest water account or client is, as you can imagine, Ohio University. For the month of May and the month of June, each month we're off by $100,000 because of nobody being in the res halls. September, the students, there's roughly 300 or less that are in the res halls that will be there from the 24th through up until the 28th. So we're bracing ourselves for another $100,000 hit. And not that I have a crystal ball in front of me, because I don't. I am also instructing my department heads to look at the scenarios for Ohio University remaining online education through the remainder of the year, as opposed to them coming in on the 28th of September, staying in the res halls for basically 6 weeks, only to vacate at the before Thanksgiving or for Thanksgiving and not to come back. And if that were the case, again, that will continue an extremely challenging scenario for the city of Athens. Your water bill is what maintains the water delivery system. Your sewer bill is what maintains the sewer system. Nobody anticipated a pandemic. With that, we budgeted for 2020 under the normal circumstances. No one knew that how quickly, if and how quickly the pandemic was going to spread through the United States and in particular state of Ohio. So, and then to add on top of that, in conversations and the data that I received from places like the college bookstore, and now without having the Bobcats playing home games, with MAC not having games, that being postponed until the spring, with MAC, all of MAC being postponed, as well as the Big Ten and the Pac-12, and who knows what other conferences are going to do. The college bookstore is anticipating easily an $800,000 revenue loss, counting their loss from the spring and anticipating a loss into the fall until the end of the year. They too have reduced their staffing. Their current staffing is 35% of what they normally staff. And when you start doing things like that, and for the 2 hotels, they've reduced their staffing to, had reduced it to 50%. They're up slightly because Menards was housing people there in the Fairfield and in the Hampton for training for Menards. They had dropped down to 50% staffing. They're up to 80. They're likely to drop back down to 50% again. And that's income tax revenue that we won't be realizing here in the city of Athens. And to just so everyone knows and understands this, those are never dollars to be made up. That will never be made up. Those are dollars gone. We can't recoup them. There's no way, unless I were to go out, and I would never do this, and say, you know what, folks, we're going to have another, 0.2% income tax increase. And that's not going to happen. Not going to happen. And then the other piece of this equation, which we will be experiencing, is the faculty that were given their pink slip to finish off the year 2021. Come May of this coming May of 2021, they will not be on the payrolls of of Ohio University, 50 plus faculty, and those are faculty salaries that are in the $40,000 to $60,000 range. So that's an unknown for the city moving forward with that level of revenue loss from those positions as well. I've just fed you a whole lot of information. If anyone wants to know more information, I can certainly get that to you. But and that's why I find it important for this board to meet in November before the Thanksgiving holiday, before OU releases, just so everyone has an idea as to how stark, and that is a good word to use, I believe, Alan, how stark things are going to be as we move forward into 2021. Sorry for being Donnie Downer. The upside is the Bailey Trail System is still building trails, and that's going to be our saving grace to some degree. I had someone call me from Columbus last Friday who had experienced the Bailey Trail, and the individual was absolutely gushing on the Bailey. He's a lawyer from Columbus. He's an avid mountain biker. He said, I have not experienced anything like the Bailey anywhere in the state of Ohio. He said, you guys have a premier mountain biking, mountain trail running, hiking, whatever you want to call it, trail system. And he wanted to know what the weather last Saturday was going to be. And I said, well, as I'm tracking it, it's going to be kind of miserable, but come on down. And he said, the reason I'm asking is I want to bring a group of my friends, 15 of my friends down to experience the trail. When you're bringing 15 friends of a lawyer, I can only imagine what they would end up leaving behind in terms of money in our restaurants, our microbreweries, our, Ohio is home, whatever. He said, since the weather's bad, maybe we'll put it off to this weekend. So hopefully they come back this weekend and come down here and enjoy it.
So that's a quick question.
Okay.
So we're talking about being creative. I mean, I guess, where do the arts fall into being creative? I guess is my question moving forward, because I know we've laid off our program specialists and we have some things happening, but, and I 100% know that we're in a stark situation. The one good thing I could say, silver lining, is, our tax was higher. Our projection was pretty low, and so we beat that. Even though we're down from last year, we at least beat that. Which is a good thing. But there's still no money. And I share this at council on Monday. I'm really concerned about the arts piece of this. I know we don't have any money, but we don't have a program specialist. We have a few people that we're trying to pull together to do that. But we meet in November. What does the budget look like? Are we creating new budget lines there? It's half of, it's a third of our name, APR. And I'm just concerned about that, I guess. I know everybody is, but I'd like to just know more versus just hoping that it just gets better, I guess. And I don't know what the group thinks, Terry, and I know you and I talked a little bit, there's some stuff, but, I don't know. I guess I'm just voicing, I don't feel very good about it. I think, arts will be just slashed completely, and that will be just part of the reality, I guess, and we're supposed to be here to advocate for that, for, the whole department. And because, all the programs we have, I'm assuming are revenue neutral, but, the arts, there's so much revenue that can be created there. But if we don't have anybody over that, how can we bring that to fruition for 2021, because, you're going to chop it if there's nothing there, to support it. We can't just have a negative revenue line with something. So I just was wondering, I want to bring that up.
Well, Brandon, I got the figures from Auditor Heck, and currently the city is subsidizing Arts West.
Mm-hmm.
We brought in $38,000 last year. That's it. So when I look at Arts West, I don't look at it so much as the city delivering an arts program, but more providing a facility to facilitate art endeavor. Art's very important to me. In fact, when I look at my disposable budget, our family disposable budget, we're in a position now that we spend more money on the arts than any other category in our budget. I support Stewart's Opera House, support the Performing Arts Series at Ohio University. Been a season ticket holder down at Fur Peace Ranch for who knows how many years. So arts are very, very important. In fact, you take music and dance and theater away, and all I've got left is golf. My point being, I think we may need to take a look, and this is my opinion and my opinion only, one of 7 board members, is that we may need to take a look at Arts West as a facility and begin to concentrate on more original programming, just as we do out of the recreation center. Because right now, Arts West is basically a rental facility. Not only inside the building, but $3,600 we get outside the building for leasing parking. So from my point of view, is that is a valuable facility. It needs to be made available. But in addition to continuing to welcome any and all comers who want to bring arts programming, we might want to look at revenue neutral at worst arts programming originating from inside the Arts, Parks, and Recreation Department.
And I understand that. Who's going to do that? I guess is my question. I agree 100%, but who's going to do that? I mean, and hold on before. So, because we had this discussion last year about the arts, and it's no secret. It's the lowest thing in this whole group. Not us, but I mean, like everything. It is the smallest of the 3, the parks and the rec and everything like that. But our staff is smaller and smaller. I mean, we don't have, Andrew's not there, and Terry and I were talking about this. I trust Terry's judgment, but Terry is dealing with this whole department in COVID, something we've never had. And so for her to create new revenue lines or programs and stuff like that, there's conversations, everything. And so that's my major concern. I mean, that was the program specialist job, liaisoning with different groups, creating things, having the eye on that ball. Terry can have the direct, this is what the department can afford and the decision making, but we all know there's so many decisions that need to be made, like recreation. We have some programs happening. We've had people over that, and so that's my concern, is that we are going to continue to spiral, and then it's going to just be a hollow space that you can come in and rent for a birthday party. That's not arts. And we champion arts, and I guess I'm very concerned about it. And it doesn't seem like it's, there's no great answer, but I'd like just to have a discussion about it, I guess, like when this came down, we just found out, like there was a discussion before, hey, this is what we're looking towards. Like, we went from a program specialist and a staff. We knew we had to get rid of the staff, but at least we had one person in that department, then we had to get rid of that person in that department, at least till January. And I know the plan is for them to come back in January, but, we're going to be doing the budget in November, and we're going to give our opinion, but you need a person there who runs the facility, that knows that the internet isn't strong enough to do certain events, and can find, different ways to make certain things work. And that's my fear. We're just going to roll into 2021. And it's like, well, remember we used to have that strong arts department? Well, it doesn't exist anymore because it was a victim of COVID. And maybe that's what we want. I don't know, but that's my concern, and so I want to bring attention to that, and just have a discussion about it instead of pushing it off till next month and just, we'll just figure it out. Like the lending library is great, Silver Linings is great, but, that's not pushing us towards painting programs. Like look at Stewart's Opera House. Why can't that happen in Athens? We know this works. Why are people going to Nelsonville to do this? They could be doing it here in Arts West. So
go ahead, Alan.
I'll just say right now we don't have a facility. I mean, even if you had the key or I had the key to open the front door, there's little to nothing that we can do there because of current COVID restrictions. We just can't do it. Fur Peace Ranch, for example, has canceled all of their concerts for the entire year. The upper floor of Arts West is a performance facility primarily. We cannot have anything there. Quite honestly, and this might be a brutal statement, but we probably should have made these cuts back in April because there has been no work. There's been no work since April. And that's a hard, cold fact. And I don't think any of us want anybody to lose a job or to be furloughed, whether it be temporary for long term. But until we can get back in that building and do things, there's really no need to have a payroll. Now, what do we do in the interim? I think what you're talking about is very valid, and I would agree 100%. What is this going to look like when we come out of this? What can we offer as a department? And what can we encourage the community to continue to do in that facility? But right now, that building can't be used.
I guess I disagree with that, but I understand. I understand what you're trying to say with that. But I mean, I guess I'll share what's happened in COVID is everyone's gone online. And I shared this at City Council. You know, the Nelson Music Fest is doing their event online this weekend. They needed event spaces. That is a rental that can happen. You know, there are things I stream from this room, you know, to people on the internet. You know, that is a source of revenue. I make money from that. Having somebody who's over that, thinking that, and using the space and knows the building can create that, you know, and then that's my worry is that we're trying to use, you know, pre-COVID plans for a COVID time. That's not, you know, I agree. We can't bring people in there. You know, we can have, you know, art showings and stuff like that. But, you know, we don't know if we're going to get a COVID by April or June. God, I hope it's May, you know, like I hope it is, you know, but we don't know. So continue. And even after, you know, there's going to be a point where people don't necessarily feel comfortable going into, you know, after a vaccine. So having these things that can work, you know, just having a space where people can use the internet. You know, I know that was a program I heard about, you know, space on the West Side. It's, you know, people are working from home. That's an anchor to the West Side. People can go in and use that space. These are revenue. You know, maybe it could be a membership fee that you pay. You know, I'm part of Arts West now. I can come in and use the internet because I need to do this training for my job. But my fear is we're not going to capture any of that because there is going to be so much going on. There isn't going to be having by one person on the ball. And I don't think, you know, and having that position is crucial to that, creating that. And that's kind of where I'm coming from, with just my concerns, I guess. You know, and like I said, I'm just one council person. I'm not the whole thing, but I just need to raise that here.
So, well, Brandon, go ahead.
Go ahead, Travis.
No, I mean, Brandon, I'm there with you as an arts advocate, and I fully support everything that you just said. But again, thinking creatively, it's not going to look like what we are used to. So again, we have to think creatively. No, we can't bring people into the space, but you can live stream out of it and probably reach audiences, a number of people that can't even fit into the space. So, I mean, we just have to think creatively. As a board, we probably have to go back and look at our mission and vision statement. Is it clearly stated in those? Now, we might have to change our goals and objectives to meet those, the vision and the mission, which is what we do. But if it's not clearly stated in there, that's not going to be the driving force to get the support for that third piece of arts, parks, and recreation. So I think that revisiting the mission and vision statement, I think that was you that mentioned that, Brandon, during the retreat, is going to be a key piece. And we have to not just talk the talk, we have to believe in it. So, I mean, and support it and demonstrate that.
So I was going to say, you know, part of the challenge is that it is a performance space. The upstairs is a performance space. But I also want to say that I know that I'm committed equally to the arts piece of Arts, Parks, and Rec, without a doubt. You know, I've overseen and have background overseeing cultural arts in my last position. Vibrant, successful cultural arts, not necessarily the same. I mean, we're you know, the same circumstances because we're in COVID. I can tell you that, and I'll say this on behalf of Mayor Patterson. I don't think there's anybody that supports the arts more than he does. We're not going to let this piece fall off. I can assure you of that. When we had the conversation the other day, Brandon, I told you that to keep things moving, I was going to take on that piece. Since then, Mayor Patterson has charged me. We've had brief conversation with the intent of meeting next week to talk through this a little more, but he's charged me with looking at connectivity hotspots at Armory Park, at Arts West, Habitat House, and Southside Park. I'm getting costs on those. I have the cost for Arts West. Our hope is that we can use CARES money to pay for that, making that happen sooner than later. So we've got some moving parts there as far as getting the building, Arts West, in a position to be able to stream and do some of those things. But I can assure you that I'm not going to let the arts piece fall off the radar. I'm going to keep that alive. I'm going to meet with different people in the community to determine how partnerships can be made to keep that building vibrant. I think, where we're at now, we've got the time and over the next few months to evaluate that and look at how we retool that, the type of programming we can potentially pull in, whether it's virtual. And, again, I believe that, in these unprecedented times, we're going to fumble through some things. But I think it's really important what it looks like when we come out. And this advisory board is going to be key in that. I don't think you're going to let the arts piece fall off the radar either. So, and again, with Travis on the board and Mayor Patterson's commitment to the arts, it's just not going to happen. Yes, we're challenged with things, but we're going to have to come together and figure it out.
Terry, in terms of two things that were brought up, the lending library and something that Brandon brought up, the virtual performance broadcast, however you want to term it. The 3 meeting rooms, A, B, and C down at the rec center, the smaller of them, the B and C, are they currently being used?
No.
So my point is, what would be the possibility for the rest of the year, September, October, November, December, transferring some of the things that might have been done at Arts West, such as the lending library and a space for virtual performance, transferred down there?
So, I think with this task force, we need to determine how we're going to use that space. I'm open to that. The lending library, as it stands, is by appointment only, so we can continue that from wherever it is. Where the instruments are housed, it's climate controlled, so that would be a challenge to bring them here and house them here. I would keep them there. But as far as virtual type programs, that's a possibility. The program specialists, had all, this is pre-COVID, but to do something live from the Purple Stage, that is a virtual program that could be developed. If we had, the connectivity and ability to stream from there, which that goes back to the technology piece that I'm working on, and just working through that as quickly as I can to determine what those costs are and how we put that in place sooner rather than later. So yes, it's a possibility. I think too, that task force is going to determine how we use room A, B, and C, and how we open that up if we feel like that needs to be a hot spot for kids and families to come in to connect and have internet service. But I'm open to arts programs running out of room A, B, and C if that's necessary. And the other part of that is, we don't want to see the doors to Art West closed. So we need energy and life there. I'll go back to, how I started my first comment, and that is that, it's a performance space. And that's a space that people congregate in. So that's one of the biggest challenges, and it's been used as a performance space and a rental space. I'll also say that we reached out to instructors to see what their comfort levels were with bringing classes or programs back in, from drumming to other instruction. We're running into the same thing here at the community center, whether it be a yoga instructor, Pilates, Zumba. Not only our people aren't comfortable, but the instructors aren't comfortable. So the latest conversation in staff meeting has been, how do we do that virtually? Would people sign up? And some of the feedback we're getting is yes, they would probably be comfortable signing up. People want to connect. So as we move through this and our models change, it might not be a 5-week program with paid registration where we get ourselves into a position where if we've got to, if there's an increase from level 1 to level 3 that we've got to cancel things, we need more of a drop-in type and virtual type models, I think, moving forward, as well as anything we can do outdoors, whether, in the months where the weather permits. So I hear you, Brandon.
Terry, I'm curious from Brandon and Travis's, ideas or suggestions, and this personnel decision only being a week or two old is the most, I think. Were things headed in that direction in terms of this virtual programming and streaming out of Arts West? What was there progress being made towards that direction? Now we've just transitioned that to you're going to continue it on, or I don't know. In hearing those suggestions, I was curious if we were already, your department was already headed in that direction to start providing those services, or if we're kind of generating new ideas now to figure it out.
So we have some challenges as far as streaming from Arts West because there's a tree, and we've addressed the tree situation with our good neighbor, but our IT people are looking at providing connectivity and better services at Arts West and at the Habitat House. I have costs on those. As far as program and virtual programs, the one program that was in place is Silver Linings, and that is a Zoom type program with the Poet Laureate Wendy McVickers once a month. So as far as streaming out our Arts West, no, that was not in place. There was conversation around it, but we've got some challenges there.
And this may be a broader question for later, but I guess as we're talking about this, obviously the bottom line of this is trying to save money, right? So all of these ideas are great, and they're things that we can be doing, but there's always got to be the balance of how that impacts your budget, the investment you're going to make, and what return you may be able to get out of it. So I wonder, and I know Brandon said he's making money streaming out of his room. I think looking into what that could be for the city, and does that offset the expenses and the investment that actually is made into it? Because ultimately, some of these conversations are being had because it's all trying to save resources. So I think as we're being creative, we also have to continuously be mindful that it's resources that we're trying to save, and that's kind of where it stems out of. And I don't want to take the spotlight off the arts, but I do think, and maybe this is something that Mayor Patterson can talk about at the retreat, but I also think just broader of arts, parks, and recreation, that if next year is going to be stark, what is the mayor and the city's priorities when making budget decisions? I think Arts, Parks, and Rec is an easy target because it's not necessary as many people look at it, but it's definitely a strength of our community, and we certainly don't want to lose that. So I know there's not a clear ordered list of what those priorities necessarily would be, but I think it would be valuable to hear as we enter into that planning and that discussion around what next year looks like, is what are the priorities and how is the city planning on tackling that? So that informs our discussions as well.
So Mark, to that point, I'll just say that typically this is the time of year that I'm talking about 2021 budget with staff to determine, what that looks like for us. I had a meeting with the auditor, I want to say 2 weeks ago, and that they haven't started those discussions. I think we're in the moment. Our department right now is in the moment, trying to make the best decisions we can as things change. Not only each month when we see our year to dates, but each week as we try to determine what we can do, and look at where the next cuts are, because we're probably looking at another $400,000 in addition to what we've already cut in the department. $100,000 in the recreation fund, which is 270, which includes park maintenance and Arts West, and then $300,000 in the community center fund, which is 270 also includes the pool, but the community center fund. So we're making cuts there as well, and that's the latest. And the auditor's given us her recommendations and what she's saying, and then the next piece is that we go back and say, I think we can cut this much here, this much there. So that's the reality of it, and I'll just say, the mayor says stark. I try to come to work optimistic every day and feel like I can figure it out or problem solve. And I've got, moving forward, I think my team believes that we're going to figure it out. It's not going to be easy, but we're going to figure it out and we're going to come out on the other side. I've got a gnat. I am waving at you guys, but there's just been this bug that has bothered me. So, hi.
I got that. My point wasn't that Terry doesn't care about the arts. I hope that was never shared. And Terry and I talked about this. It's not that. It is that it is such a large thing that there's an investment that I just feel like with everything going on, we're going to have to figure out how to make once we switch into fall sports and winter sports, shifting everything. That is such a huge new thing that trying to create new revenue streams in the arts, it's just not going to happen without anybody there. That's their sole thing. That's arts are a third of your job. And then there's parks and there's recs, and we're trying to make them all work. And that's my concern. With bringing this up. It's not a Terry hates the arts. She only cares about basketball. She loves Duke basketball. No, that's not what I'm saying. It's that there are these new art revenue streams, and I'm just not sure if we're going to have. I feel like it's going to get dropped at some point by the whole city. I'm not talking Terry. I'm talking about the whole city. We're going to be thinking about how do we keep the parking garage going? How are we going to do this? And it's like, oh crap, we forgot we have no money for the arts. We got to cut it. Sorry. Even exactly what Mark's saying. Like I work in campus rec. take arts down here, but then you put sports right here, it's just slightly above, and it's at the very bottom of everything else. Nobody sees value in all that stuff generally, even though we know they create leaders, leadership skills and stuff like that. We don't have to tell you guys that's why we're here on this council. But, that's my concern, especially with the arts, is it's just kind of left barren, and that that $1 million idea is going to kind of get passed over because, if that person was working 24/7 on it, they would be unearthed. But, once a week meetings or something, we're going to try and come up with some ideas. And maybe I would love to be proved wrong. January 1, I will be the first one here after a thing saying, hey, you know what, I'm sorry I said this. You guys were right. We nailed it. But, just with the state of everything, I'm just worried about that. So that's why I brought that up. So
I appreciate that, Brandon.
Yeah, well, I appreciate Al bringing up the context of the current situation and getting certainly the mayor's input on that as well. And Brandon bringing up this topic, I think is really important. So good discussion. I think definitely necessary. Is there any other comments or anything else for the good of the order? If not, I will motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.